This is The Close-Up. Conversations about creativity. From our studios in Los Angeles, here is Jim Chabin.
George Bloom is the executive producer at CBS Digital at Television City in Hollywood. He and his colleagues develop virtual production tools and custom content for TV and movie productions. His team is also working in VR, creating content for the Oculus Rift. He's also served in creative capacities at Walt Disney Studios and 20th Century Fox. Welcome, George. You have brought CBS into an entire new age with virtual sets. So tell us what you're doing.
Well, CBS Digital is the visual effects department at CBS Television City. And, it costs a lot of money for producers to go on location today. And we were trying to come up with a formula that would have an exponential savings for producers. So we decided to really spend a couple of years developing an entire pipeline process from building the virtual set to actually compositing it live on set to the back-end pipeline, creating a lot of proprietary tools that allows producers to put the sets together in the post-production process. Because at the end of the day, it's the cost in the post where the money gets spent, and we have kind of a unique business model.
So how do you capture all of this data?
Yeah, it's a three-step process. One of the first step is, of course, the acquisition of the locations. So we use some laser scanners. We use photogrammetry, where we take thousands of photographs, and the geometry from the laser scan allows us to rebuild an accurate geometric model where we texture it with all the photography. So that's the first thing, is capturing. We do a lot of archiving. A lot of people build very expensive sets today, and they have us actually archive those sets in case it becomes a long-running TV series. They want to use it for marketing purposes. So once again, phase one, we build the virtual set. Phase two is we have it available to import into any camera system so the producers and directors can see the virtual set when they're filming. And then the third process is when you have that EDL, when the producers edit their show and they have those final shots, we recompose it, we re-render the 3D sets, and we give them the final color-corrected version.
Is this going to become the standard? It seems as if it allows so much more flexibility in trying to get the pictures that people need.
Well, in traditional visual effects, a lot of people use a green screen because they put backplates and backgrounds in. And that's always been a very common way for people to recreate that background.
Right.
But you have a very narrow field of view. And what we realize is that we live in 3D space, where everything we do is in 3D space. So by having a three-dimensional virtual set, you're able to go handheld, dolly, Steadicam, and walk around that virtual set just like you are in the real world. So you achieve what we call as parallax, where the objects move at different rates of speed when you're moving the camera, and so the eye believes that you're really there in that physical space. So when you can have that kind of freedom as a filmmaker or a storyteller, when we can replicate the real world into a virtual world, it's pretty hard to tell the difference.
Talk about virtual reality and what professionals and thinkers and executives have got to be thinking when they hear this in order to understand the reach and the power and the impact this is likely to have on our industry.
Yeah, so let me kind of delineate it into I've kind of delineated it into two worlds. I kind of right now call it VR 1.0 and VR 2.0. So 1.0, there's all these imaging systems out there. There's, for example, the Jaunt, or there's the GoPro system, or the Fly. And what those camera systems do is they photograph everything in what we call a spherical video, which essentially is a bunch of photographs stitched together into a 360 environment. And when you're in that, when you're wearing your headset, you can look left, right, up, and down. You can move in 3 access points. But that's a very passive experience, and that's what the cardboard and the Gear VR and mobile is using right now. But all the new hardware, the new Oculus Rift, the Vive, the PSVR, they all use positional tracking, which you all have to put up little laser cameras that photograph where you are in virtual space. So you have to build your content in 3D space, and when you do, you can move within that 3D space. I'm starting to play in it with some of our part-time. We have our own virtual reality lab, and we're constantly testing, theories of how do we communicate in virtual space? What do we want the audience to see? Do we want somebody riding alongside of us? Do we want to have first-person point of view? Because remember, if you ask me where the future is, what I think is when the pipe gets laid, and I'm thinking 3 years out, Right now they're estimating 3 to 5 million units hitting the marketplace. Next year it'll be 15 to 20 million. So when it becomes ubiquitous, and I'm talking about 2.0, when everybody has positional tracking and they can move in the metaverse, they can move in three-dimensional space, I think the game companies are going to really come in and take over. And I'm not saying we're going to see everything is going to be gaming, but you look at Walt Disney Pictures, you've got a market cap of $135 billion, and they bought Lucasfilm for $4 billion. You look at Activision, they bought Candy Crush for $6 billion. Netflix has 65 million customers. Activision has 500 million customers in 197 countries. So those companies are really equipped to jump into that metaverse more than anybody else. So I think they're just cautiously waiting until that pipe gets laid.
But take us through the next few years, 3 or 4 years, and talk about how our lives are likely to change because of this technology.
Well, I think there's a lot more applications than, of course, entertainment. I think industrial is going to be a huge area. Education is going to be a huge area. There's going to be, behavioral things where people who can't do things that they used to do for the elderly. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of branches to the tree in virtual reality.
What does Hollywood bring to the content creation piece of VR, and what do we got to get right over the next couple of years so that we do have a future of a business?
Well, once again, as the pipe gets laid, the hardware comes out, I know there's approximately over 275,000 developers that are registered between the Oculus Rift, the HTC Vive, and the PSVR. So you've got a lot of smart people on computers crushing it week after week, putting up content, creating ideas that most people have not even seen yet. So we're really we have one toe in the water in a big ocean here.
How does AI impact our daily lives? Where are we going to see that?
Well, in business right now, the algorithms and AI are used, when your Uber rates go up, the computers know what's going on. So there's machine learning, but right now there's just speech and voice recognition, there's language processing, there's imitations of brain behavior through, AI. Kind of on the threshold, or some of it's more science fiction, is, wisdom, machine learning, intelligence explosion, which is the machines are taking over. We haven't even hit that yet. So we're pushing the edge right now with chatbots. We're pushing the edge with what they call predictive thinking. So we're on ground zero. You know what I mean? 300 years ago, 90% of the income of this country came from farming. And then we moved to the Industrial Revolution where it was manufacturing. Now we're in the information age. I mean, if you go to school today, when I was going to school, you learned either French or German or Spanish. Today, you got to learn coding. That's the universal language.
You've worked with a lot of great directors, and we like to ask our guests this question. What do all great directors have in common? When you see someone on a set who's done something and you walk out and you're impressed with them, what do they do?
I just think it's focus. People have to fall in love. I directed for a while. I spent about 16 years as a director, so you have to really fall in love with that idea and take that inner, I always say there's kind of 3 types of conflict. There's, man versus nature, man versus man, and then man versus himself, you know what I mean? So I think it's you find that little nucleus that you care so much about what's going on inside that character's head, and you get those actors to reflect what that story is all about. So when you see an actor in love with what's going on at the core of that story, you can see the fire in his belly, and then you see the focus in the director of just communicating that message through all the tools, the DPs. So I focus, just passion, you know what I'm saying? And a good paycheck.
When you, that's always good. When you look to hire people, and you've hired a lot of people over the years, when someone comes in to see you, and I'm assuming they've got a good resume, what do you look for that resonates with you as far as something that you see in someone and say, I think I'd like to hire this person? What are those qualities that they have?
For me, I think it's just self-motivated. It's very hard to motivate people. And if you meet somebody who's very self-motivated, has dreams, have vision, and you can channel that energy, I think that's what we look for over at CBS Digital. Young people that are coming up that just have a real passion and are very self-motivated.
I think the metaverse is has a great future with you in it. I thank you so much for coming, and I hope you'll come back and share more with us as this exciting new digital world moves forward.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It was great to be here.
Thanks, George.
Okay.
The Close-Up is produced by the Advanced Imaging Society in Hollywood and powered by Barco.